top destinations where the New Zealand dollar is strong right now. So this is via Money Hub. We've got a top 10 list of countries where your dollar is going to go a lot further. So the top 5, we have Japan, Thailand, South Africa, Portugal, and Mexico.
Welcome to Checks and Balances, the Takeover. This is Jess and Michaela back with another episode. And today we're talking about traveling peak season versus off season, kind of like our top traveling tips and where you can save a bit of money.
Yes, when is the best time of year to travel? How do we get the cheapest flights when we need to travel? So covering all of those topics today.
Does anyone really want to leave New Zealand at this time of year? Because pretty much anywhere else you go besides Australia and I think some parts of like Southeast Asia are going to be cold. So
you're right, it's cold everywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, I'd go back to Canada right now, but
anyway.
No, most popular destinations. So obviously a lot of Kiwis go to Queenstown. If you live on the North Island, that's a flight down to Queenstown, usually in the winter, ski season. Another popular destination is Australia, Gold Coast. People are going down there.
If you want to go skiing for a week in July, you can get return flights for as little as $360.
I don't know. If you go down in July, are you going to get snow though?
I've got no idea. I'm gonna sound like
I usually go down in the winter for a bit of like a snowboarding trip, and we always are struggling with the balance of like not paying a super high price for the tickets, but also going when there's still snow on the mountains.
Yeah, trying to find the shoulder season, but it's always going to be a risk, right?
I know, and global warming's not really helping.
Not helping one bit. And then, in Gold Coast, like you said, the same thing. So if you're going a budget airline in peak season, you're looking at about $300 or $400 for return flights in New Zealand.
Return.
Yeah,
that's
in New
good,
Zealand, you're looking at more $500 to $700. So in New Zealand's a little bit more expensive.
I do find like. Obviously, New Zealand's very far away from a lot of places, but I'm always surprised at how cheap it is to me to go from New Zealand to parts of Australia or even just elsewhere in the country, because coming from Canada, it's actually so expensive to fly domestically.
Really?
So if I wanted to go from where I lived on the West Coast to the East Coast, that round trip could have easily cost me like $2,000.
What?
Yeah.
I guess Canada's quite big.
It is quite big, but I don't know if it's just because there's not a lot of like airline options, but oftentimes I'd be like, oh, I should go visit my family on the East Coast. But then I'd be like, well, I could also spend the same amount of money and
Europe.
be in Mexico.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. Yeah, I guess we are quite lucky in that sense. I mean, I've been in Europe for most of my 20s, and so compared to that, it feels very expensive here, but I guess maybe we are a little bit lucky. So on that Gold Coast, so $300-$400, $500-$700 peak season. If you're going off peak, we're looking at sort of $250 to $300 if you book in advance. So you can get really good flights off in the shoulder season. So when we say shoulder season, usually that's going to mean spring and autumn, because people are going to a destination for the summer or for the winter.
Right.
So booking in the shoulder seasons is pretty key. And I think also when you book, so how far out do you book is also quite important. How far ahead do you plan your flights normally?
I always try and plan things like quite far in advance because I'm always worried like you end up being that person that goes, oh, I'll wait a little bit longer and they'll probably go down. I'll wait a little bit longer and they'll probably go down. But meanwhile, they just keep going up.
Yeah.
Or you're waiting for a sale or something and then the sale never happens.
Especially if you actually need those exact dates. I always found that booking about 3 months out, like if you look too far ahead, sometimes they're quite expensive because I feel like they're jacking the prices up knowing that people want those specific dates. Whereas if you're booking sort of like 3 to 6 months out is when I would always find my best deals. The other thing I would say is if your work has the flexibility to give you last minute time off, you can actually find some incredible last minute deals because people are just trying to fill seats at that point.
True. Very true. Obviously, we're quite secluded down here. So what do you think like the outbound travel costs of New Zealanders trying to fly elsewhere? We must spend so much money trying to get around the world and see a little bit of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like other people have travel so accessible compared to us. So looking at New Zealand's international tourism sector, we've seen significant growth in 2024, obviously off the back of everyone being pretty locked down for a period of time. Total expenditure reached $11.2 billion for the year ending March. So
that's massive.
That's a phenomenal amount of money that we're all spending on getting out of here.
Yeah. And it'd also be interesting because what I've noticed about Kiwis is a lot of, especially in our age group and younger, people are trying to they're trying to leave. They're not just trying to go on a trip. They're like going on a trip and then figuring out which spot they stopped in that they want to stay in.
For sure.
So you have not only people spending all this money on getting out of here, and then you're also losing people a lot of the time.
I think a lot of the younger people that I speak to feel a little bit robbed in the sense of they didn't get the same opportunities over their 20s that we did to jet off because of COVID.
Right.
So it's all happening now.
Yeah, so now they're like, let's go.
It's all happening now. They've all got their savings built up and they're heading off. So actually the number of travelers rose to over 3 million in the same period of time. So the year ended June 2024, which is up 640,000 from the previous year. So more people are traveling and we're spending more than we have before.
Because we could travel in 2023, right? Yeah.
We could. What was everyone doing? Why is it up?
Yeah.
Don't know. There's a big jump.
Maybe flight prices have gone down? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just speculating.
Could be that. So we know that Kiwis love a little trip over to Australia. What percentage of our international travellers do you think are going to Oz?
I feel like it's probably heaps because it's not that far. So it's not like you're not spending as much as you would if you went to, like, say, Europe or North America.
Yeah.
But it's still like you're going somewhere. So I'm going to guess like 70%.
It's actually 50 to 60%.
Okay.
I still felt like that was heaps. But
that is heaps, I think.
Yeah. Because most people are going to Aussie or the islands, right?
You know, I've actually never been to Australia.
Never.
I came all the way over here and I haven't gone over there yet.
You're not missing much.
Oh,
Nah.
that's a spicy comment.
No, it is spicy. No. Aussie's good. I've got friends there.
Yeah.
It's nice to see
What's
them.
like, what would you recommend as like, if I'm going to go for the first time, where should I go?
Well, maybe I haven't spent enough time there. Maybe that's my problem.
I'll just be like, where's the cheapest?
Yeah. Well, Sydney's, I would say. Sydney's, it's a nice
That's
city.
the classic spot, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, what about people coming here? Because I don't know if you've noticed the sheer amount of cruise ship goers that are in the CBD lately.
So many. We always know when a cruise, because we're based in High Street, so we always know when a cruise ship is in because there's people wandering around looking super
Everywhere.
lost. Yeah.
And they're always like right in the middle of the sidewalk, like immovable objects.
We've all been that person. So yeah, peak season for those arrivals is December through February, which makes sense because that's when it's our best weather. Wouldn't really bother coming to New Zealand outside of that time, to be honest, because the weather is too touch and go. So December through February, 39% of all of our annual visitors arrive in the country in that period of time. And most of our visitors are from Australia too. So we're going there, they're coming here. 40 to 50% of total arrivals annually are from Australia. So almost 1.3 million Australian arrivals were recorded in the last year, which is over a third of the total number of international arrivals.
So we're kind of like, we're trading, you know, like,
yeah.
I'll go there, you come here. I guess it makes sense. We're neighbors. What about, I mean, we have a lot of American people come here too. I think especially off the cruise ships, but the United States accounted for the second largest international tourist group entering the country
this really year. Interesting, eh?
Yeah.
I
hear
that.
a lot of Americans out and about in the streets.
Yeah.
Walking around. They're loud, so you can't miss them.
Now who's throwing shade?
You'll throw shade at the Australians and I'll throw shade at the Americans.
Fits the brief. I'm really, like, you made a good point when we were talking about this episode. Like, how many people do you think come for a holiday and end up moving here because they like it so much? I really do think, like, when I was based overseas and people hear that you're Kiwi, I don't know if you get this with being Canadian as well, so many people have either say to you, I loved New Zealand when I went there, I want to live there, or it looks incredible, I definitely want to visit, it's on my bucket list. So I think it's funny because a lot of Kiwis, we're talking about traveling away from New Zealand, and a lot of Kiwis really knock New Zealand. We don't realize how lucky we've got it. Actually, when you go overseas, people think we're amazing.
Yeah, I think
place.
Like when I moved over here, I had so many people like, wow, that's so amazing, because what you see overseas when you think of New Zealand is like you see that quintessential image of the lupins blooming over Lake Tekapo, or you see like the Queenstown mountain ranges and lake, you know, that kind of stuff. And that people think New Zealand is like, and it kind of is, I think
idyllic.
It is this beautiful, peaceful, idyllic, everyone's kumbayaing in harmony. With the sheep, you know, which I don't know. Maybe it is like
we're not that far off.
Before we move on, we talk all the time about planning and growing our wealth, but protecting that wealth is just as important. That's why having the right insurance in place can help when life goes unexpectedly.
And that's why this episode is brought to you by Partners Life, a New Zealand operated award-winning insurance provider with over 300,000 Kiwis insured and 89% of claims paid.
Partners Life understand that having some insurance is better than having no insurance. They have flexible and personalized solutions for any budget or situation.
Check out their website in our show notes below.
We may have it lucky here, but let's talk about getting out of here some more. So the top destinations. The top destinations where the New Zealand dollar is strong right now. So this is via Money Hub. We've got a top 10 list of countries where your dollar is going to go a lot further. So the top 5, we have Japan, Thailand, South Africa, Portugal, and Mexico.
All right.
Any of those on your bucket list?
Japan, definitely. And I feel like I keep seeing all these articles, but the yen is dropping. I see like videos of people that are like, especially from New Zealand and Australia, that are just going over to Japan for like 2 days at a time, 3 days at a time, just because the flights are cheap and the dollar is strong, so they can go over and do heaps of shopping and like, make a quick trip of it. And to them, it's worth it. I don't know if I could do it in 2 days, but it's definitely on my list.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely keen. I've had so many friends go there in the last year or two and absolutely love it. So Japan's top of my list too. I also love Portugal from when I was over in Europe. I was in Europe. Portugal was definitely a favorite. So many things to do. It's very cheap once you get there. Lovely people, good food, good weather. Ticks all the boxes. So
I'm curious about so Mexico's on here. That's number 5. And Mexico, the dollar there is cheap against a lot of currencies, but we're so far from there. I feel like the flight would have to be really cheap for it to be worth, because you're also not going to spend a lot of money there. It's more about hanging out on the beach, and you're not like shopping.
No. Yeah. Oh, I think like if you're going to go to Mexico, because of the flight cost, you have to go for a good stint, like at least 2 weeks to make it worth it.
And it's so far away as well.
Same with a lot of these places, actually. All right, the next 5. So we've got Greece, Bali, Taiwan, bit rogue, Turkey, and the Cook Islands.
Why do you think people are going to Turkey so much?
I love Turkey. That was the other one that I loved.
It's supposed to be like a hair transplant joke.
Oh, yeah. No. I love Turkey we did Gallipoli, Anzac Cove, which was an incredible trip.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did learn about
and then
that.
you do the hot air balloons. Istanbul's
Did
amazing.
you do that?
The hot air
balloons?
balloons? No, we didn't get there, unfortunately. That one's still on the list. But I can definitely attest to your dollar going pretty far in Turkey. Things are cheap, especially if you're out in some of the beach towns and things like that. You can get some incredible meals, day trips on boats, and you're spending not a heck of a lot.
What are we doing here? I want to be doing that.
Tell you what, I know. No. So on the topic of a European summer, we had 114,000 Kiwis travel to the UK in 2024.
The Euro summer, this is another thing. I'm going to say this so many times, but like things that I didn't know were a thing until I moved to New Zealand. But the Euro summer thing as well. I mean, obviously, there is people from Canada that go
is that
to
not
Europe.
a thing for you guys?
Well, there's people that go, but I feel like here it's like this. It's like a thing.
It's an obsession.
It's like a phenomenon.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm doing Euro summer. And I was like, okay, like, it seems like everybody's doing this. Should I do this?
Yeah.
I went in the winter.
Did you?
When I went.
It's just a different experience in the winter. And I think that sort of brings us to, talking about the right time to travel to Europe. Of course, a Euro summer is incredible in its own way. But if you're traveling on a budget, and especially if you're based in London or one of the main centres, the flights in and around Europe are so cheap over winter and the shoulder seasons. Like, I can't even explain to you. We would log on to Skyscanner and there'd be flights for like £13 for the weekend, which
I feel like, because so many people go and they think it's like a rite of passage. Like they have to do it. So if you're going to make it, like force it into your budget, then you got to find those cheap ways to do it.
Yeah. And there's some like so many cool things that you can do in the wintertime over there as well. Like there's plenty of skiing. We would do lots of skiing in Eastern Europe where it's super cheap. And
you're so fancy.
Well, it wasn't though. That's the thing. It's not at all. Like you can do a ski trip for like next to nothing compared to Austria and France. Like those are expensive. But
the Alps.
Go to Bulgaria. Cheap. Super interesting. And I think the whole Euro summer thing is definitely a rite of passage. So you will end up going and doing that. But keep in mind the difference in the cost of flights on the shoulder seasons. We're talking like 30 to 40 to 50% discounts on some of those flights.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest tip probably here is that if you can travel slightly off peak, you'll probably save money, have a better experience because I feel like there'll be way less people around. And, you know, you'll still get to go where you want to, and hopefully the weather is still all right.
The climate actually, funnily enough, peak of summer in Europe can be unbearable. Like we're talking 40 degrees plus.
Ooh.
For me personally, that's not a fun
That's
time.
too much.
Unless you're lying on a beach, it's not a fun
Even
time.
then.
Yeah, even then it's too hot. And, you know, there's definitely been instances where it's been too hot for us to even be outside. We had to be inside an aircon. Like what's the point in going? So the off-peak seasons actually really do have their appeal. And we would quite often use the winter months to do countries like Morocco, Egypt, and Jordan, which in their summer are like 50 degrees. So you're going to these places in winter, which nobody else is really thinking to do. And it's not like a nice 24.
Yeah.
And there's no one there.
24 is nice. That's
perfect.
warm. It's that today.
Yeah. If you can deal with the New Zealand climate, then you can definitely cope with that.
Definitely.
So, yeah. Okay. So to wrap up, my top tips are that you should be booking on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That's when the cheapest flights are, because that's when the flights usually get released, I find.
Fascinating.
So using tools like Skyscanner, where you can look across all the airlines, all the dates that you want, and yeah, having a look on the Tuesday, Wednesday time of week. Usually 2 to 3 months out, I would find would be the best price. So unless you have specific dates you need to be somewhere and that's on peak season, yeah, okay, maybe you need to be looking 6 or 12 months ahead. But if you can be a little flexible, 2 to 3 months is usually the sweet spot. Flying, this probably goes without saying, but flying on Tuesdays and Wednesdays or Saturdays plus early morning or late night is the best, like in terms of price. So keep an eye out for those. Also using Skyscanner in flexible search mode. So you can set, like, I want to go for a long weekend in February, and it will find the cheapest flights for you in that period of time. So if you need help with Skyscanner, hit me up and I can show you some hacks on there.
I'm going to hit you up because I've never heard any of these suggestions.
Haven't you? Yeah. So Skyscanner is where it's at. Cool. So those are my top tips for traveling, saving money, when to travel. Hopefully that's of some use to you. Thank you so much for listening today. Thank you to Partners Life for sponsoring the episode. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.